Good Tuesday evening to you all out there, and welcome into another episode of the Barking Brown Show. I'm Jacob, Mr. Casey Kinnaman, and Nick Carnes down below. We're brought to you as always by our friends over at SeatGeek. Like, it's summer, it's time to get out, go to a concert, go to SummerSlam, get yourself ready for the NFL season. Go get your tickets over at SeatGeek. Use our promo code Barking Browns, one word, get $20 off your first purchase. I apologize to everybody that apparently Twitter decided you now have to have a blue check mark to go live on their platform. So as we were sending this video out to go live, I was informed that we will not be live on Twitter tonight. So I apologize for everybody. But if you're seeing us on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up. We'd appreciate that a ton. Gentlemen, how are we?
Doing good. Still sunburnt. I don't learn lessons well, so I was sunburnt from the weekend. And then today was hot down here, man. So after work, I took my daughter swimming. More sunburn. So, glutton for punishment. But I'm excited, man. Like, rookies were reporting to certain camps. The Browns aren't among that list yet, but, like, we're at the doorsteps of the vortex, people. Football is right around the corner. And pumped up, talk some ball tonight.
Hey, I'll tell you what. I got the All-Star game on over here, too. Cleveland's got 5 All-Stars. That's fun. We got Nick Chubb squatting a whole bunch of weight. And I know we're going to get into that, too. Lots of fun topics. It's weird. I was talking to Jacob on the phone earlier today, and it's like, even though we're here without any real football, there's a surprisingly, it just there's never a lack of things to talk about. It's like the gift that keeps giving.
Yeah, and so we're going to continue through on our position preview for heading into training camp. Next Tuesday, it all comes to a head as we do our 53-man roster predictions show next Tuesday. And so get your comments and suggestions in for punishments for when Casey loses. What? But we got a couple other things to talk about. We got some Nick Chubb stuff. We got something that made somebody on the screen here fighting mad today while they were at Walmart. And and then we got a great guest, Casey. You know what to do.
Yeah, man, I'm super pumped. We're all going to get smarter tonight. So we're doing our positional review, and we're talking about safety. So we went and got someone who's going to help us understand the game a little better. You might notice him from Cleveland.com or as many appearances on Sports for CLE. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Coach Lance Reisland.
Oh, shit. Did I? Oh, no. Oh, God. There we go! What's up, man?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. Awesome.
We just I can't figure it out. First, Twitter's like, yeah, you're not going live on this fucking platform. And then I'm like hitting buttons and nobody's showing up on the screen. We're gonna, that's a, all
it's
right.
A quality operation. That's what you're dealing with, Coach Riz.
That's all right. I love it.
That's the word I would use. So Nick Chubb, man, let's do that. Let's start with the Nick Chubb stuff. And then as we kind of rotate ourselves into the rest of the episode, but, there's a clip going around on Twitter of Casey mentioning a couple of weeks ago, we were sitting on here and we talked about that video of him doing the stability drills. He was working out with Aiden Robbins, the Browns UDFA, and on his injured knee, stability, trying to get knocked over, looked great, jumping on it, one-legged, all this stuff. I was like, okay, that's promising. I'm starting to feel better and better about when you're going to see Nick Chubb. And Casey was like, when I see that tsunami bar bending around him, then I'll know he's back. Well, music to God's ears, because dropped on Instagram from the company that is documenting his rehab, we have Nick Chubb squatting over 500 pounds 8 months after just destroying his knee. Coach, I'll line you up, man. Thoughts?
Well, nothing surprises you with Nick Chubb, right? So I get the lucky opportunity to kind of go down there and see it. I really like seeing it up close. So as they're running drills, I actually get out of the way sometimes. And Nick Chubb's lower half is, it's impressive. And his just thickness, his ability to do things doesn't surprise me, because if you guys all know this, he runs every drill like it's his last drill. Every drill counts, from individual to 7-on-7 to individual drills with quarterbacks to 11-on-11, red zone, you name it. His attitude, his effort is fantastic. I've been asked a lot, what do you expect from Nick Chubb? You don't know how much, because it's really unknown coming back from what he came back from. But you'd be kind of stupid to think that he's not going to give you something. Especially, I kind of break that season down, and especially after that, that bye, right? Can he come back with that tough stretch? I think he's got a little time in those first couple weeks, maybe kind of ease his way into it. Who knows, right? He shouldn't be playing at all, really, if you think about what an ACL, MCL, PCL is. I'll be interested. The side-to-side movement will be the next thing. We've seen some of that, but that's when the ACL is really that side-to-side lateral explosion kind of stuff that always seems to be last. But once again, I've read your guys' stuff. There's nothing surprises me with Nick Chubb. The guy when he's out there, he acts like he's a third-string back, fighting for his job at practice. Yeah. It's pretty impressive and fun to watch.
I think the funniest part of that video is when it first started making its rounds on Twitter in the morning. There was some doubt that it was from this off season, like currently happening, because Nick wasn't wearing a brace on his knee. And so a bunch of people were saying, is he really not wearing a brace and squatting this inhuman amount of weight and just talking about that? And it's just, when it was proved to be, because you just went to the company that put it out, their Instagram, and you saw that it was from that day. But when it was proved to be from that day, it was like there was just this collective shock of like people were like, oh my God. And I get it. There's a ton more of a journey to go. But I just don't feel like this is something that you commonly see a guy, especially on a twice destroyed knee, right? That you had surgery on both times, if I'm not mistaken. And the first time they were talking about how it was a devastating knee injury. And we saw how Nick came back and has been in Cleveland since. But to already be where it looks like he is at this point is I'm not going to say that I'm surprised, but it's just so encouraging. It's so exciting because Nick's the heart and soul of the Browns. And, Andrew Berry made it clear they wanted him here. They got him back. And it's just like, you even see fans from other teams saying I interact with Steelers people a lot. And even they are wishing him well. And it's just like the type of respect that he gets.
Yeah, I never for 1 second doubted that he would put the work in, but it's how does the body respond? I mean, you can want it all you want and put in and dot all the I's and cross all the T's, but if the body doesn't respond, there's only so much you can do. And this is the second time he's had to come back from this devastating knee injury, and it just takes a ton of mental fortitude. And to Coach's point, I'm there. Like this was a big step seeing him with that kind of strength, but it's not just the strength; it's the explosivity he needs to do lateral movements, and how his game's predicated to stretching and then cutting back in when he sees that lane, and it's like that, and you can't even think about it. It has to be just reactionary. So that'll be the next step, is seeing him pull that, and then it's Nick Chubb. I'd bet against him at your own peril is what I would say.
I just continuously think to myself, like, why do we do this? Why do we go, oh my God, he's doing that? Because it's just what he does. It's just what he does continuously. It's like, it should not surprise you. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know, man. He just doesn't seem human sometimes with some of the way he battles through these things. And he had multiple surgeries on that knee. Multiple. They had to go in and clean some stuff up. The first one we thought he was only going to have the one, and everybody was like, oh, that's great. It was just going to be the one surgery and everything was going to be fine. It's not as bad as we thought it was. But then they had to go back in, and it's like, I don't give a shit. Like, I'm Nick Chubb. What do you want from me? Like, we're going to shift over. There's a video making the rounds. I'm going to let Nick say his piece, and if either of you guys have anything you want to say about this, you're welcome to, but I know Nick is chomping at the bit to get this out of the way. There is an interview that was done with Pardon My Take with Baker Mayfield, in which Baker referred to himself as a stubborn asshole. He did. He said, I should have gotten the surgery. So he's talking about 2021. He said, I should have gotten the surgery. Talked about being more mature now, talked about being in a great place where he's at, all those sorts of things. But he was I thought he was candid. Like, I thought, like, even if you didn't like what he said, I kind of appreciated some of the honesty and some of the way he was just like, yep, I was an asshole. I should have done this. But one particular person on this panel was not pleased. So, Nick, the floor is yours.
All right. I'll tell you, I'm calmer than I was this morning. But just watching that video took me back to 2021, man. And that shoulder injury was the domino that has led us here to where the Browns sit now. And there was so much controversy at the time, like how injured is Baker? How capable is he? Should he be playing? Shouldn't he be playing? Whose decision is it? Where is that? Where is this going? What's the future like? Are they going to pay him? And I look back at it, and it's like Baker himself admitted he was being selfish in the decisions that he was making, and you trace that back and look at how the organization at that point had to make a decision if they were going to move forward with Baker as their quarterback, pay him, trust him to be the leader, the face of the franchise that they drafted him to be. And when Baker's flat out admitting that he was being selfish, you sure as hell know that the organization themselves know that he's being selfish. That's not a guy that can be the face of your franchise, that you can move forward, that you can commit to in the long-term way. And it's like, of course, Baker gets to, and I get it. He had a rough go in Carolina. He bounces to LA, and then he gets to Tampa Bay. I'm not taking anything away from him. He's earned that contract that he's gotten and the success that he's had since. I'm not taking that away from Baker, but it's just it comes off to me as so smug. It, like must be nice to be like, yeah, I was being selfish and I was a stubborn bastard. Like, as you're sitting with your new team, with your new contract, with your new future, as you can just look back and it's like, some people are like, well, how mature of Baker, good for him, we're rooting for him. And it's like, yeah, all of these things, all of this hindsight comes at the expense of the team that drafted you number one overall. Like the team that they said if anyone could handle Cleveland, it would be Baker Mayfield, and so now he gets to just move on his merry way and have his grand future in Tampa Bay, and it's like Cleveland has just been left with the pieces, and we don't need to dive into the things that happened afterwards and all of the drama and nonsense that has surrounded all of that. And you just look back at it and you think about everything that we as Browns fans, analysts, whatever, have had to go through, and just the way that the fan base has reacted and the way the fan base is still split to this point. And so I'm just like, good for, Baker just gets to smile and laugh and be like, yeah, I was selfish, whatever. And it's like Cleveland's just been left to pick up those pieces of what happened after that. And it just rubs me the wrong way, man. It rubs me the wrong way because the franchise was headed in one direction, and he just is blatantly admitting he chose to take it in another. And I just can't. I still believe in the Browns. I still believe that they're going to figure out the quarterback situation one way or the other. But just thinking about all the assets they had to move and all the drama that surrounded all of that, and for Baker to just kind of nonchalantly admit he was being an ass, just doesn't sit well with me at all. Like, good for him. He earned his Tampa Bay contract. They can't take that away from him. But it's just like, of course, you find a way to just like kind of laugh about, you being an ass and the damage that your decisions caused, because now you're sitting pretty. Sorry.
You good?
You feel better?
Yeah.
Does anybody else need to rant about it?
Not going to rant. I'm not even going to. My thoughts don't even go anything around Baker. It's organizationally, because I think this is a smart organization. I think they go about most things, and they're close to the vest and they're not transparent, but they have a blind spot when it comes to dealing with these kind of injuries, to where whose decision was it? At some point, if he's ineffective and hurting the team, and you have a healthy backup in Case Keenum that you believe you can pull out some games and let this kid rest or get surgery or whatever, I think you go that route. And I would think they were past it, but then my mind goes right back to, I think it was week 7 at Indianapolis last year, and they had Watson out there, and you could tell right away that this wasn't going to work, that he was still injured. So I just think they have a blind spot there. And at some point, I understand the quarterback has a decent amount of power, but at the end of the day, someone needs to be able to make that call. If a guy is too injured to help the team, to step in and be like, no, and I just don't know if they have that.
Yeah, I would agree. For me, it's always I try to stick in my lane in terms of film. And I just think with Baker, especially when Stefanski got to the point where they were bringing people in, and I don't do the money and I don't do all that, but I just feel like there was a time they said, we want to win. And I just don't think they felt his ceiling was high enough. And if you see them at practice, I just didn't feel like the connection was there with him and Stefanski, whatever it may be. And that's just totally my opinion. But Baker, I think Baker was a really good quarterback. Baker needs the pieces around him. Baker needs the number one receiver. He needs a run game, all those things he had in Cleveland. But like you guys say, the organization now seems to be very, very well run, and he doesn't fit kind of the mold. They're really big on like how old people are and, the skill set they have and, later rounds, what attributes can they bring? And Baker doesn't really fit that, right? Baker's just, I think, a really good football player who gets maximizes his talent at times, but they didn't think it was good enough. And if their goal is to win a Super Bowl and they don't think their quarterback can get them there, that's kind of how I look at it. I'm not pro or anti Baker. They didn't think they could get to where they needed to with the quarterback they had. And we all know this NFL is a quarterback driven league, and you got to get a guy, whether you like it or not, like Deshaun Watson at that point in time, because when he came here, he was that guy they felt can do that. Now, I still think he can, but that's the idea of the football aspect. That for me, agree with what you guys say about some of the other stuff, some of the things that kind of rubs people wrong. I agree with that. But football wise, I just don't think they didn't think they can get to the next level with Baker.
Yeah. It's just, it felt like it did feel like picking out a scab and opening an old wound just randomly in July. And I was like, I didn't need that. Like, that's the only issue I had with it, was like, I just didn't need to think about that today. And then I did, and I was upset. So we continue on our position preview series, guys. We got 3 more positions to hit. We'll hit them all this week before the 53-man roster episode drops next Tuesday when we're live. But we're going to do safeties today. Safety is – I'm very intrigued by the safety position right now, because you're looking at the top, you got a guy that some referred to as John Johnson the fourth last year, which I did not think was fair. I did not think that was fair at all. But a guy that was very – I don't want to say coveted, because I don't want to make it sound like he was supposed to be this ultimate chess piece in Juan Thornhill, but Juan Thornhill's better than he was in 2023. I have zero. And Lance, I bookmarked some stuff that you said today because I wanted to bring it up later about Juan Thornhill specifically. But you got Juan Thornhill, you've got Grant Delpit, you've got the veteran Rodney McLeod, and then after that, it's like, are you going to keep the 2 undrafted free agents that you had last year? Are you going to go down to only 4 safeties? Because I think you want to keep 6 of these corners. And like, I think it's such an intriguing position, and it's going to be, for me, I've done a 53-man roster prediction on Browns Wire, and I'll do one next week. I don't know what to do with some of this safety position, because it's got some of the depth I like, but it's like, how much do you like some of these guys after the top 2? And of course, you've got Rodney McLeod, and he says it's going to be his last year, and he can move around and do all those sorts of things. But like, I'll start with you, Lance, and we'll go around the horn, man. Just kind of overview. We can get into some specifics of the safety room, but just kind of where do you sit with that safety room right now?
Well, I'm doing a piece on Thornhill this week, and I agree with you. He did not play very well last year. That calf injury really hurt him, and you can see it because I broke down his film from his years in Kansas City. He doesn't run the alley very well last year. He's not a very sure tackler. He doesn't cover very much ground last year. There's just some things that he's always done that he didn't do last year. Now, once again, it's kind of the people have let me know very nicely today that, if you can't play, then you should be on the field. And I understand that, but these guys are competitors sometimes, and they want to play, whether it's good or bad. I think he'll get back to it, hopefully where he was. But that's the thing. He just didn't move as well. He didn't react as well. He didn't cover as much ground. His ball skills weren't what they were. His tackling in space, his running that alley, like I said, love Thornhill. So if you think about what they got Thornhill at the top. Then they go Delpit, right? And even though they're interchangeable parts, Thornhill is kind of the free safety center fielder type, and they like Delpit down in the box, which is where I like him too. And then you got McLeod, who can do both. I think Hickman's a guy, if you're going to keep Hickman's got to be get back down in the box a little bit more, because he's more of just that free safety type like Thornhill. So it depends if Hickman makes that transition to be able to play both. But that second level guy, really they have one safety, in my opinion, true safety who covers sideline to sideline. It's that free safety guy, because they're going to be in one high hat, 80% of the time. So they have to be able to cover sideline to sideline, make those calls, cover who needs help and where. If it's JOK's outside, Delpit's outside, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the key. McLeod can do both. Hickman can do both. But they got to have for these guys their third, fourth guys got to be versatile, right? They got to be able to play down the box like Delpit, and they got to be able to play deep like Thornhill. And Thornhill's got to play better, and I think he will moving forward. That calf injury really hurt him. His movement wasn't what it was. So I just think if you watch his KC stuff, people should get excited because I think that's what he'll get back to.
So Thornhill being healthy in 24 is such a pivotal part of this defense because it frees up Delpit to do, because Delpit's athletic enough to do the free stuff, but he's so much more beneficial to have in the box to bring down your nickel or an overhang linebacker scenario. He can just do so much. So having that guy who can be the cover one free safety and roam sideline really frees Delpit up to be a weapon for this defense. But I do think the back end of that room, you really have to think about the skill sets. I think Anthony Bell put too much good on tape last year to sneak to the practice squad. I think that if you decide to go for safeties and you go with Hickman because I don't think Bell can do the free safety stuff. Obviously he's good up in the box. So I think if you were to choose between the two, you go with Hickman. I just don't think you're going to be able to smuggle Anthony Bell onto your practice squad.
I just look at the safety room as a whole, and obviously the Thornhill injury was one that seemed to linger and get re-aggravated through the year, and then on conversely, it's like Grant Delpit gets paid, and then immediately was it a groin injury last year that he had? Yeah. So it's like you had injuries to both of your starting safeties, and Grant showed you a ton of good stuff last year. He's led the team in tackling before. I'm really excited to think about, because even when Juan was out there, Lance, like you were saying, he was definitely limited. So it's like, you bring him in and you've paid both of them to be your long-term duo back there. And they really haven't had all that much time to play alongside each other, especially when both are healthy, to like really see what you've got between those two skill sets. So that's like the biggest thing to me is let's get them both on the field healthy and able to really develop and take that next step. Because, like Jim Schwartz talked about wanting to continue adding different looks, variations, pieces to what the defense is as overall as a whole. And I don't think you can do that with both of your safeties being not together on the field. So hopefully this year is when they really start to do that. And I mean, Ronnie Hickman last year, man, talk about highs and lows. I was really encouraged by him stepping up like he did. But I do agree that they've got to use him more specifically. And maybe last year, just because of the way the injuries shaped out is why they couldn't be more focused. So I'm just hoping this year that they collectively have a little bit of better injury luck, because ideally you're just going to see Thornhill and you're going to see Delpit most of the time.
Yeah, the thing that's really interesting about Hickman that really impressed me last year when he got the opportunities was how good he did play at free safety, because I didn't really think that's what he did well at Ohio State. I thought, like, the stuff I had on Hickman coming out was get him as close to the line of scrimmage as you can. Like, that was kind of what I thought about him coming out. And then he kind of excelled back and I'm like, well, you know what? If you can play single high deep safety like that, like, I've got a roster spot for you, because I think he's more of a physical guy, and I just don't think he has that high end speed. But kind of made me eat it last year, doing some of those things that I thought was really nice. And I just think that if he can latch on to a veteran like Rodney McLeod and kind of learn the way, McLeod's been in this league for a long time for a reason. Mm-hmm. And he plays all over the field. I think that helps Grant Delpit too. I think it goes both ways with Delpit and Hickman. I think both of those guys can become a Swiss Army knife like Rodney McLeod. And I think kind of getting with that veteran, I think that might even be the most important contribution that McLeod has this year, is helping these young guys. Grant Delpit's ready to ascend. I think he was there. I think he was taking that Pro Bowl, borderline All-Pro kind of step last year, and then he gets a groin injury right away, and you're just like, well, it's just shitty luck. Like it's a tough go. But if Jim Schwartz is able to have Grant Delpit and Rodney McLeod and somebody else, more likely than not, it would be Ronnie Hickman, that he can move interchangeably all over the place and rotate these guys in and keep them fresh. And Juan Thornhill gets to the guy they signed, because they've lacked with Joe Woods and all of that in all the years with Stefanski before last year. They never had a center fielder. Having that center fielder that is a safety blanket back there, that is a true safety, so to speak, if he can play to that level, and it allows Delpit and Delpit and McLeod and Hickman to just go wherever they're needed, that's a change up, man. That's a change up that, Jim Schwartz talks about the change ups. That can be that if you can get a true center field Pro Bowl caliber safety back there to allow these other guys to move all over the field. And a healthy Juan Thornhill is that. He is that guy.
Well, I tell you one thing I really like about Hickman, I think you brought up a good point, is at Ohio State. So Ohio State, is in a much more of a two shell, right? So these safeties are able to play for the Browns very, very well because there's limited rules, right? There's limited things they do. If you're the one high safety, unless you're in zero coverage because they're bringing a 5 or 6 man pressure, you're playing center field, and you got to know scouting reports and you got to know tendencies, things like that. But you're able to just play. And talk about Delpit being, down in the box. If you look at Delpit, especially when he's playing that force player, that outside backer type guy, he's got C or D gap responsibility. He can scrape over the top, or he's got man on a tight end, or possibly a slot. And if it's a slot and it's a guy who can play, then the guy behind him's got to know that, things like that. But the thing that makes Schwartz, these guys play at a high level, the thing that makes Schwartz so good for me anyway, is the fact that if he doesn't make you think, and I don't care if it's high school, college, or pro, if you're thinking, you're not moving. And so everybody always says there's nothing I did as an offensive coordinator that any of you or anybody else who understands football would go, oh my gosh, that is the high innovative stuff. No, what I always try to do is make my kids play with their hair on fire, because if you play on your hair on fire, you got a chance, especially defensively. So they don't have a lot of rules. They don't have a lot of gap responsibilities. They get to read it. They get to read their keys, and they get to play downhill. And the free safeties, it's just that. He's a free safety. And that brings into Hickman's athletic ability and his length and things like that. Even though he didn't have a ton of success in a two shell, one high is very good for him, in my opinion, because of his athletic ability.
I mean, it definitely was last year. It's like I was blown away by it, though. Truly, and it's a good point. Totally different kind of scheme. He's being used in a different way, and he was able to excel at it. But it's just like seeing Jim Schwartz last year hone in on his players' skill sets and strengths, and finding places to put them and allow them not to think, allow them to play aggressively with their hair on fire. I just think he coached his ass off, man. Well,
remember, as a coach, once again, no matter what level, it's not what you know, it's what your players know. And that's was the one thing I got from my dad in 45 years of him being a high school coach and being an offensive coordinator for 23 years. It doesn't matter what I know. No one cares what I know. What do your kids know? What can your kids get done? And that's the same thing at the NFL level. Those guys know their rules. And if you know your rules, regardless of what you see offensively, they're not tricking anybody when Z is next to Miles. They're trying to create a matchup there, right? And they're going to win with people, and they're going to win because they're better than you. And if they're better than you and they know they get to do it, like they're going to be better in man coverage this year because they've played man coverage now for a whole year in practice every day. That's what they did. They don't play zone. They play man. So it's just those little things, and it just allows them to play fast. And, his first interview, I remember him saying, hey, if you know football at all, you'll know my defense. And it's really true. You don't look at anything he does. His zone pressures, his Sims pressures, they're all really understandable. They're just really good and play fast. And that's important, even at the NFL level.
I was surprised actually by Hickman and Bell, because going into last season, I was kind of worried about the depth after you got past McLeod and Delpit and Thornhill. Like, what did you have, if you had to rotate one of these young guys in? And they kind of stepped in seamlessly when they were called upon. And I think that also points to coaching, keeping it simple. These guys were ready to go, because you have to understand the very first game, Thornhill goes out in warmups. Those
Yeah.
guys didn't know they were going to see action that early, and they were just ready. But I think when MC made a point there, Delpit could be a Pro Bowler. We make a lot of JOK in his 20 tackles for loss. Delpit had 7 tackles for loss last year, and that's with missing games. I think he really made a huge step. And for him, the key is health, in my opinion,
Yeah.
because I think the skills are all there, and I think Schwartz understands how to use them. I think he understands how to weaponize him, how to make him a guy that quarterbacks have to identify when they come to the line of scrimmage. And Delpit's making it harder on him by changing his number. He'll be rocking number 9 this year.
Yeah.
But what do you think the upper bound limits for Grant Delpit are in this defense?
Well, I think, first, that's, I don't look at their defense as linebackers, safeties, linemen. I think of it as 3 levels, right? Schwartz is a level 1, level 2, and level 3 guy. And those level 2 guys are the guys who can be really, really good in this defense, because that defensive line, same thing he's done with everywhere he's went, right? He's got a fantastic defensive line with great depth. So that second level people is, you got the 2 guys inside and you got the 2 guys outside. Really, really simple. Hicks is a guy who's going to be the guy who kind of is the green dot guy. He's a guy who's going to take things on. The key is to keep JOK, put him on that get him on the outside. Now, will it be a nickel look with Newsome, or will it be Bell? I mean, will it be Bush? And will Bush back up the 2 linebackers? Again, though, Hicks is going to be the guy that takes things on. JOK has got to be the one thing JOK struggles with, and he doesn't really struggle with anymore. He's not huge, right? So he's got to make sure those double teams don't get to him. Now, the thing that makes the double teams different now is that they're no longer waiting for the double team and waiting to see what gap you're going to. They're going. And that's the difference between, there's lots of people who play the read and react defense very, very well. And they have those big guys up front, things like that. Schwartz's style is not allowing JOK and Delpit to wait. And then all of a sudden they get those big bodies in their lap, right? And then you're in traffic. And some guys don't play well in traffic, right? So you got to keep them away from traffic. JOK without traffic, knowing what gap he has, is a scary guy. Very similar to Delpit. They have a very similar Delpit. Delpit, I think, can cover a little bit better. Obviously, JOK has some linebacker skills. But those second-level guys, those are all similar body types, right? Guys who can blitz, guys who can cover, guys who can drop on 3rd and long and come up and tackle. Very similar skill sets. They all got to be interchangeable parts. They got to be able to blitz, tackle, etc. So I think Delpit, JOK, they are all pro caliber type guys in their skill sets, and they're in a defense. It's like if you're a receiver, you want to, the more you catch it, the better you are, right? So they're in a defense that's going to allow them to showcase their skills as well.
The Delpit injury hurts particularly because he was contributing in so many ways. I think he had like 2 or 3 sacks last year. He had a couple interceptions. And Casey, you mentioned the tackles for loss. It's like all of a sudden you're really seeing that guy that they drafted. The Achilles thing really hurt him and slowed his development. But I thought he was really coming into his own, especially in this defense. And we were seeing one of those do-it-all type safeties in Grant Delpit, and that definitely got cut short last year. I have really high expectations and hopes for Grant Delpit and what he can be in this defense, because I thought we saw it. It just got cut short.
So the thing that really captivates me with what he has done is he was not. There were some tackling concerns coming out of LSU.
Yep.
Like that was some of the stuff that he falls to the second round. Like it's like, hey, he's got some tackling issues, like will he be able to clean that up at the next level? 2022, he had 105 tackles. He was one of the top tacklers amongst safeties, and he had 4 interceptions that year. And then, last year he has 80 tackles in 13 games, an interception, 3 passes defensed. He had 7 tackles for loss, but he also had 4 more quarterback hits and a sack and a half. Is what he finished with a sack and a half. So he's everywhere. And if he stays on the field, I think you should talk about him like it. I think you kind of made this point a little bit, Lance, but I think you should talk about him the way you talk about JOK. I think when you are talking about some of these real young, hyper athletic players that can excel, I think Delpit should be in the same breath as JOK when you're talking about this defense at 24.
Well, and he got the thing about it is that if you think about the offensive line, right, there's 5 guys up front. The Browns dictate that you either give 2 for Myles Garrett, or you got to keep it back in, and then you only get 4 out, right? So what it really ends up being, if they're getting the back out, it really is 4-on-4. And what I mean by that is they're taking the guard and the tackle, or whatever it may be, and they're going to double team Miles, which leaves 3 for the other. So you're technically with an elite guy, you're 4-on-4 up front, even though it's 5-on-4. So that fifth guy, if the Browns bring the fifth guy, JOK, Delpit, that's why that defensive line, that's why they're so deep, and that's why they continue to draft the defensive line, because that defensive line allows that second level to do the things they want to do. You have to double team Miles. You got to double team Tomlinson if you're running power. It allows those second level guys to play free, because whether you're running the ball or if you're in pass protection, you got to account for Myles Garrett. You got to account for Obo. You got to account for these guys. And there's only so many guys you can keep in if you're trying to, get into concepts, right? High lows, things like that. There's only so many. So they make it a nightmare for you. And I think they're only going to get better at it.
I'm so excited. Well, Lance, we appreciate you joining us for this episode.
Yes,
We're gonna. What am I doing? Okay. Sorry, I saw a squirrel or something, and then I did a squirrel. But we appreciate you so much, man. Like, real quick before we sign off for this episode, just make sure everybody knows where to get your see your stuff.
It's just everything is on. It's at Lance Reisland on X. It's at Lance Reisland. Really simple. Same with Instagram. It's at Lance Reisland. You can check out Cleveland.com. I usually have some stuff up there. Just try to do what you guys do, right? Writing what we see and try to help people. I know I'm a lifelong learner, so I learn from everybody. So, like I said, everything's just my name, and it's real simple stuff.
Lance, I feel a lot smarter for having listened to you, man. This was awesome. Thank you for joining us. So I guess just to pull the curtain back, we're doing a lot here. Are we ending this and going on to the next?
Yeah, that would be
okay.
That would
my
be
bad.
What wrapping.
I'm sorry. Brad, I don't know. I got Monday paid.
No,
Regardless,
you're good.
This has been a safety review, Nick Chubb squatting episode of the Barking Browns show. Nick, that's Lance, that's Jacob, he's Casey. Go Browns.
Go Browns.